One of the long-enduring daytime television show that has somehow managed to stay on the air significantly longer than some of its competitors is The Price is Right. Sure, Days of Our Lives and General Hospital are still airing new episodes after being around since practically the dawn of time, but unless you're an avid soap fan, you probably have more beloved memories of The Price is Right. Each hour-long episode consists of contestants guessing the prices of household products while participating in a variety of mini-games. Don't lie, you know you always wanted to spin that big wheel or play a rousing round of Plinko. The show's been on for more than 4 decades now, but its best years were arguably when it was helmed by host Bob Barker. Sorry, Drew. Alongside Bob was his winning team of beautiful starry-eyed models, whose only purpose for being there was to hold up products and look pretty. Those models, who mind you were exceptionally good at their jobs, would endearingly become known as Barker's Beauties. In each episode, Barker was surrounded by his lovely trio of ladies as he instructed all of us to have our pets spayed and neutered. Besides holding up products, they would also do tasks such as flipping vinyl signs around, revealing product prices, and showing off their ever-evolving and up-to-date wardrobes. Throughout Bob Barker's tenure, there were a few beauties that devoted large segments of their careers to the show. The major 3 were Holly Hallstrom, Janice Pennington, and Dian Parkinson. The trio assisted Barker with his games from the 1970s to the early 90s. After that, the beauties began to disband, each leaving the program with nothing good to say about our old friend Bob. Join Facts First as we analyze why Barker's Beauties left The Price is Right. Up first, we have a model who claimed Bob forced her to have sex with him for years. Dian Parkinson. Before landing the gig on The Price is Right, Parkinson had competed in beauty pageants for several years. In 1965, she won the Miss District of Columbia USA title. She then competed in the Miss USA 1965 pageant and placed 4th runner-up. Later that year, she won the 1965 Miss USA World Contest. She went on to represent the U.S. at the International Miss World Contest and was runner-up behind Leslie Langley of the U.K. After gaining recognition, Parkinson toured with the Bob Hope USO show and appeared on his Vietnam Christmas television special in December of 1965. Hope then put her in touch with influential people in the industry that helped her get her TV career off the ground. In 1975, after appearing on an episode of The Mary Tyler Moore Show, Parkinson was offered a 3-episode trial period as a model on The Price is Right. Filling in for another model we'll be discussing in a bit, Anitra Ford. The show's producers liked her so much, they called her back onto the show permanently later that year. Dian was the beauty who seemed most comfortable wearing a 2-piece bathing suit every episode, but she was also the one who would ultimately be the most problematic for Barker. Parkinson's looks and penchant for wearing skimpy swimsuits eventually allowed her to explore other modeling opportunities. Not only did she do Playboy magazine on more than one occasion, but she was also given her own exclusive Playboy Collector's Edition and VHS Video Centerfold Special. The classic era of Price is Right arguably ended in 1993 after Parkinson left the show. When Bob announced her departure, he claimed she was leaving to pursue other interests. But a year later, she slapped Barker with an $8 million lawsuit claiming he had forced her into a 3-year affair that involved sexual coercion and led to her having a miscarriage. Barker admitted he did have a sexual relationship with Parkinson, but claimed it was consensual. Parkinson's wrongful termination suit was dismissed, but the sexual harassment charges stayed. Dian, however, would ultimately drop the charges in '95, citing mental and emotional distress and a lack of funds to continue paying for her legal fees. It's also been alleged that Barker paid Parkinson an undisclosed sum to drop the investigation. Hey, if you're enjoying this video so far, be sure to give it a like and subscribe to Facts First if you haven't already. And stick around, we have 3 beauties to cover. Janice Pennington. Pennington was one of the first Barker beauties, working alongside Anitra Ford. She was also the show's longest-running model. Janice joined the show in 1972 at its start. Between the 2 beauties that were featured on the show back then, Pennington was considered the more mature, classier one. For 29 years, she dutifully handed Bob his oversized microphone at the beginning of each episode and never tried to upstage him or the products. A year before landing her career-defining job on The Price is Right, Pennington was Playboy's Playmate of the Month in May of 1971. It's conceivable that appearing in the magazine contributed to her landing a spot on The Price is Right. Throughout her time on the game show, she seemed to be the one model, aside from Anitra Ford, who had the least problems with Bob Barker and her treatment on the show. There was an incident, however, in 1988 when she was knocked unconscious by a camera and fell into contestants' row. Fortunately, she recovered from the accident, but after needing reconstructive surgery, she was left with scars and one of her shoulders sat lower than the other. After that, her days of modeling in bathing suits were cut short, but even so, she still managed to outlast all the beauties by a long shot. She ended up leaving the show in 2000 under some murky circumstances. Pennington was unexpectedly dismissed after a taping of an October 2000 episode. There was no announcement made, and Barker never spoke of her again. Evidently, she had signed a settlement that forbid her from discussing the details of her dismissal, so we'll probably never know what really happened. One popular theory is that the then 58-year-old model was given the axe to make room for a younger, more attractive model to take her place. It also might have been Barker's spiteful way of getting back at her for testifying in the wrongful termination suit brought on by the next beauty we'll be talking about. Holly Hallstrom. On January 3, 1977, Hallstrom joined the other two beauties on The Price is Right, Pennington and Parkinson, after Anitra Ford left the show the previous fall. In 1983, Hallstrom briefly left the game show to pursue an acting career, but she rejoined in 1984. In September of 1995, Bob Barker fired Hallstrom. She first asserted that Bob had dismissed her after she'd gained 14 pounds due to a prescription medication she was on. Hallstrom later claimed the real reason she was given the boot was because of her refusal to back Barker when Dian Parkinson sued him for sexual harassment. Allegedly, Barker had ordered her to do interviews and talk shows to say Parkinson was lying. She claims he also coached her to recall specific events differently than she did. After the public initiated a letter-writing campaign complaining about her dismissal, Barker sued Hallstrom for slander and libel. 48 hours before the trial, Barker backed down and dropped the suit. The court ordered Bob to pay Hallstrom's legal fees, declaring her the prevailing party. Hallstrom then countersued Barker for discrimination, wrongful termination, and malicious prosecution. In 2005, she won her case and was awarded a multi-million-dollar settlement. Anitra Ford. Best remembered for her work as a model from 1972 to 76 on The Price is Right, Ford got her start modeling in the 60s. She landed her first acting role, albeit uncredited, in the 1971 film The Love Machine. She went on to appear in films such as The Birdcage, Messiah of Evil, and Invasion of the Bee-Girls. Her most notable film role was appearing alongside Burt Reynolds in the opening scene of 1971's The Longest Yard, in which she played Burt's rich girlfriend, Melissa Gaines. On TV, Ford scored roles in shows like The Odd Couple, Starsky and Hutch, and Wonder Woman. Anitra had been one of Barker's beauties since the show's start in 1972. In 76, after almost 5 years of being a model on the program, Ford became the first beauty to quit. She was the only permanent model from the Bob Barker era to have left the program on relatively good terms. Now it's time to hear from you. Which one of Barker's beauties do you remember most fondly? Let us know in the comments section below. And before you go, make sure you give this video a like and subscribe to Factsverse if you haven't already. Click the bell icon to stay updated on all our latest content.